Welcome back, everyone. The Students' Loans Bill was signed into law on the 12th of June 2023 by President Bola Tinubu in fulfillment of the promise made during his campaign. And months after that, the President also said implementation of this initiative will commence January 2024. The federal government said this initiative seeks to provide access to interest-free loans to Nigerian students in tertiary institutions. And just recently, the federal government voted 50 billion naira in the 2024 budget for the implementation of the scheme. But as we await the commencement of this program, tonight let's speak with the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Dr. Tanko Sununu, for better insight into the implementation of the scheme and other issues regarding the education sector. Dr. Sununu, good evening to you and welcome to Politics Tonight. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again, and once more, let me commend your station for giving education a priority. I was here about 48 hours ago, and you still granted us a period to come and have a chat to you with the view to educate Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you on the program tonight. Now, there is so much talk about the students' loan, and according to the federal government, this scheme is capable of empowering financially disadvantaged students, narrow the widening skills gap, and check rising social inequality. So talk to us about the modalities and the structure in place for the takeoff of this scheme.
Well, thank you very much for the time. And well, the modalities are being set up. And first of all, let us commend Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the political will he has in restoring hope in the educational sector. Of recent, we have seen a lot of actions that goes to emphasize and also to demonstrate Nigerians that the president is ever ready to do the needful in resetting the education sector towards achieving its desired goal of producing a good workforce in Nigeria that is backed with their necessary skills, discipline, character, and armed with skill that it can work to produce a citizen that can produce or work effectively in his country to improve in its development and also to contribute to development of development globally. Well, the idea of having this student loan scheme is based on the fact that it followed the amendment of the Education Bank Act of 2004. And the issue here is the education access, because of the global financial crisis that is not only limited to Nigeria, is becoming a mirage to most especially the lower class of the society. And therefore, the only way to rescue it is to find a way out whereby students can be empowered to ease their hardship and also improve their access to education. And that's why the loan scheme came up. And then Mr. President, during the campaign, as you rightly mentioned, has made it clear that he's going to pursue that as one of the major goals of the administrations. And therefore, he instantly assented to the bill, thereby transforming it to an act, and then to ease access to higher education within the country. Mr. President is not stopped at that. He has also directed that the committee that should be in charge of the implementation of the fund be constituted. As prescribed in the Act, the governor of CBN is the chairman, and he also has the right, as enshrined in the Act, to appoint the secretary with a lot of membership ranging from the minister responsible of education, finance, accountant general, committees of vice chancellor, representative, and that of rectors and BCs, Nigerian Bar Association, and then even the Nigerian Labour Congress, with view to administer and source for the fund. And not only that, in the budget, as you rightly mentioned, a 50 billion naira was kept aside for that. And even if you look at the supplementary budget of 2023, additional money was also placed for the student loan scheme. And then there are many other sources that is very soon will also be operational as prescribed by the law. In the act, you find that the federal government oil tax, at least 1% of it will go for the same fund. So also, any loan that will be, you can also, there is also room for people to give a grant, gift to the fund so that it can be well managed. The essence of the proposal now is going to be done in such a way that it doesn't differentiate anybody from the access. It has to be affordable and accessible to everybody. And that's why right now a website is being developed that students can access the loan through timeline application on the website so that they can access the fund. And then it's very simple in terms of the qualification for you to access the fund. One of it, you must be a student. And once you are a student, you have secured your admission, you are free to access, and then go to the website. The website will, as promised by the President, and in many fora we have been discussing about that, will be unveiled towards the end of this month. Definitely by January, students will start to access the loan so that they can access it. And it's also made in such a way that once you apply, processing is going to be online without much difficulty, and you can be sure to access or to have access to your phone within 1 month of the applications.
All right. Now that you've gone there, because there are speculations that this scheme will be run from the Office of the Chief of Staff to the President, and you would agree with me that a student's loan office should be a place where students can have easy access. Asaro cannot take such crowd. What do you have to say to that?
No, you see, there is not need of any crowd in the Office of the Chief of Staff or even in the CBN, no. It's going to be online. So you can do it even in your living room, even in your bedroom, you can apply and then you access it. There is no point for us coming and say you are coming to join and move to the Bila for interview. You see, the act is a specification of the act that comes up to the committee that is going to saddle with responsibility to administer the fund. So the fear that people will not have access to Bila, so that, and therefore they can be denied access, doesn't even arise because it's going to be online and it's also going to be timely.
All right then, so what are the likely sources of funding for this loan scheme?
As I mentioned earlier in my earlier highlight I gave, I made mention that apart from the budgetary allocation that has been devoted to that to the loan, you also have 1% for taxes that you are going to that is going to be paid for the oil and also minerals accruing to the federal government. And then there is also room for grant, and also there is also room for gift, and also there is going to be another sources, which is the repayment of those who have succeeded in earning the loans. And then there is also another budget set aside from the national budget. So these are some of the measures, and it's this time that I also use this opportunity to call on our philanthropists to utilize the provision of the act to be our brother's keeper, so that people can give a grant to the loan scheme, so that students can access it and utilize it in order to better the society, to get them well. This has been happening in many countries where people are giving grants to student loan schemes so that students can come and access it and ease their way of pursuing their educational career.
Right, but do you think the conventional banks should be used to run this scheme, or a specialized bank set up for this purpose?
You see, if you look at the provision of the act, apart from the fact that the money is the CBN will also use conventional bank to administer the loans. So that is the provision of the act. But by and large, I will also agree with you that there are certain provisions in the act that we are now thinking, and we are looking at it with the view to amend them very soon so as to facilitate access to the loan.
All right. All right. I mean, for the purpose of clarity and better understanding, who qualifies for this loan and how will beneficiaries be determined?
Well, as I told you, the first qualification for you is that you have to be a Nigerian. You also have to be in a public school. You also have to have secure admissions, and you must follow the procedure of applications so that once you satisfy all these criteria, then you are a beneficiary. When you apply, you can get the loan.
Right. Let's also address the issue of funding, or refund rather. When is the beneficiary expected to start refunding, and how much will it take to refund?
Well, if you talk in terms of the refund, all these are also specified within the Act, and it says that the refund will be started after 2 years of completion of National Youth Service Corps. And then you will be paying 10% of one's salary, which will be deducted from source and then remitted to the student loan fund by the employer of the beneficiary. So also for the unemployed, you are also going to, the modality of payment for the unemployed is for them to remit at least in the business they are doing. They will communicate to the community, this is the level where they are, this is the personal engagement they are having, and this is their capital, and this is their profit. And they are expected to remit at least 10% of their monthly profit to the loan scheme until they have finished paying back the money they have borrowed. So these are the two modalities. It's either you are on self-employment, where you now use your profits to repay, or if you are on salary earner from an employer, your employer is mandated to deduct 10% of the salary of every month until you pay back, you pay back the loan.
All right. But Honorable Minister, some analysts are of the view that once the loan scheme is in place, universities should be given full autonomy. How will you relate this loan scheme to varsity autonomy?
Well, you see, the university autonomy is something that also even we as a ministry and as a government is looking at it, and this is not necessarily because there is loan. Already there are some autonomy granted to university in terms of the appointment of vice chancellor, and just of recent also Mr. President has removed them from waiver and give them the direct autonomy to recruit and fire, which will improve the services of the university. And also, as we go on, the other modalities to allow the university to have their autonomy is also being looked into with the view to give it in such a way that the autonomy will not compromise the access to education by students.
Right, so let me quickly take you up on some of the reactions generated as soon as this scheme was announced. ASO, for instance, criticized this idea of creating a loan scheme for students, and according to them, this scheme is another channel to enrich private universities' operators, claiming the loan should be a grant. And you also have the National Association of Nigerian Students who have said they would want this in bursary from. What's your take on this?
I didn't get it. You said to enrich the private university, or what do you say?
Absolutely.
Huh?
Let me take this question.
Is a way to enrich. Okay, take it, please.
Let me take the question again. I mean, when this scheme was announced, there were so many reactions generated as a result of this announcement. ASO, for instance, says that this idea of creating a loan scheme for students, they say the scheme is another channel to enrich private universities' operators. They claim it should be a grant. On the other hand, you have the National Association of Nigerian Students who said they want this in bursary form. So I'm asking, how do you react to this?
Well, my reaction to this is that, you see, one of the cardinal principles of this government, that of the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, which we have also signed to adhere to, is the respect for the rule of law. And the President has demonstrated that in actions and in words, that he has respect for rule of law. And if you look at the Act itself for now, until amended, it says public schools, universities, colleges of education, and polytechnics, and then some other institutions that will provide necessary skills. So I wouldn't have seen where we are, based on the provision of the Act, the private institution, universities or tertiary institution can be enriched with that fund. So, you know, and we are in democracy, and in democracy, one thing that we have enjoyed and what has also been granted by Mr. President is the freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So people are free to express their feelings about the loan, also about the act itself. And that's why even last time when I was here, I made mention that the federal government and even the federal Minister of Education took the cognizance of the issues, critics raised by Nigerians on the modalities of the access of the loan. And in that, the committee is working assiduously to see how all those issues that are being raised by student body, by the general public, by civil society group to address and make the act very impactful.
Right. But dissecting this criticism by ASU, is there any that can be adopted by the federal government?
Is there any?
Is there any that can be adopted by the federal government?
Well, you see, there are a lot of issues that can be adopted, and once that we reach that level, I told you that this government is open. We respect the Freedom of Speech Act, the Freedom of Information Act, and that's why we constantly in your stations and many other stations to explain what is happening within the government, so that the governance can be owned by Nigerians, and Nigerians can have at any time understanding of the procedures of government.
Right. So also for the purpose of clarity, apart from students of public universities, there's a call to also have students from private universities to benefit from this scheme. Is there a plan in place to bring them on board?
You see, now, the whole process is dynamic. You see, when you have what you have now, and then we use it to see and perfect the situation, government is ever ready as the financial countries, status of the country and economic determines to see how it can improve access to quality education to everyone, to every citizen of Nigeria. You understand? But for meanwhile, at that time, we must work within the provision of the Act. That is one, because we are already limited with that. And we also look at the natural resources, the country resources. And at the moment that the country resources is enough to cater for everybody, irrespective of resources, then we now think of amendment of the Act so that everybody will benefit. But for now, the provision of the Act is on the public institutions.
Right, so there is no plan to bring private universities on board. Is that it?
I'm not saying there is no plan, but what I'm telling you is, right now we are restricted by the Act.
Right.
Two, we also have to look at the economic situation of the country, so that look at it how we can afford to this thing. And as soon as the economy can permit that, and the Mr. President has demonstrated that he's ready to improve well-being of every student and Nigerian. We'll have seen how the statement on IPPIS that has been a source of strike for many years has been thrown away, and then autonomy was given to the university to recruit and fire and also control the enrollment of their staffs. So people thought that may be difficult to be done, and it was done. So this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there is no, we are ruling out that completely, but it will be determined by the amendment of the Act and also by the economic situation of the country, which we hope, with what the President is putting on ground now, very soon the economy will rebound and the country will be in a better pedestrian to move forward, and then everything will now line into what Nigerians want by grace of God.
All right. Honorable Minister, can you also elaborate on the measures put in place to ensure the success and sustainability of this scheme?
Well, the success and the sustainability are already enshrined in the Act. First of all, it has described out the sources. And just now, we are just dealing with one source. That is the budgetary allocation. And in the operationalization of the Act very soon, the 1% from tax accruing from oil source and mineral source will also be given. And then that will be sustained. And also we'll continue, we'll also see very soon, you will see a lot of states also coming up with their own loan to back up with scholarship. But let me also tell you that the Student Loan Act does not negate or abrogate or foreclose the function of Federal Scholarship Board. They are going to be going concurrently at a time. While some benefit from loan, others also benefit from scholarship.
All right, let's now shift our attention to TETFund. The scheme has been in existence since 1993, helping to fund infrastructure and human development deficits within the university system. Now, apart from giving loans to students, will this new student loan scheme support TETFund in any way, especially human resource development?
You see, if you look at the provision of the TETFund Act itself, in fact, if there is any intervention for now that has worked so far to save education at tertiary level in both and state institutions, TET was one of it. In fact, it has saved situation whereby you see infrastructural, human capacity development, research, what have you, is all done by the TETFund. So you see, the TETFund is meant to do that. You understand? Except if the act is amended, there won't be grant for students. But you see, institutions are also allowed in the grant of the TETFund to recommend their students or staff teaching, because it also have the component of building stronger capacity in our lecturers to be able to deliver what is needed for the student to learn and become effective, very skillful. So the Act also provides a support for education for the lecturers of tertiary institutions. And a lot of them has utilized that both internally and externally to build their capacity and further their education. So we see, if there is a provision of the Act, as I rightly said, this government has respect for rule of law. Until it is amended, we'll continue to have what we have. But if the amendment said, okay, out of all the taxes you have collected, one will go for student loan board, then a loan scheme, that can now be applied. But for now, even the act of the Student Loan Act for the access to higher education in Nigeria did not stipulate that TETFund should remit money to the loan fund.
But some lecturers who benefited from this TETFund study scheme traveled abroad and never returned. What are you doing to fix this and ensure they keep to the agreement?
You see, it is going to be very, very difficult for somebody to got a grant from TETFund and go abroad, study, finish, and refuse to come back, because it's going to sign a bond, and it is an understanding between the university, the beneficiary involved, and the TETFund, and you cannot just go free of, like that. So whosoever access it definitely will come back to work for it, and otherwise there are measures that have been put in place in both the university as an entity on its own and also as at the TETFund level.
What kind of measures have been put in place?
You see, the laws in the university, every lecturer knows if you access a university fund to go and study elsewhere, you are mandated to come and serve the equivalent period that you have agreed and signed to go. In the event you refuse to come back, you are liable to pay back what you have benefited to the university. Otherwise, the university will now charge you for defaulting on the agreement you have signed with that university. And all lecturers knows that. I've seen a lot of friends that they have gone for study and they refuse to come back, but they have been called back by the university, and a lot of them return back what they have accessed with even interest to the university that have sponsored them outside. So I don't think it is just like that it's not being controlled. It's really watched and being controlled by the authorities of the university.
Right. Let's now talk about ASU. And I mean, strike is almost the second name of the Nigerian university. What are the measures you have put in place to eliminate or reduce to the barest minimum?
Well, that's also another important thing. If you look at the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, with priority focus on education, you find that academic stability is one of the thematic areas. This shows that even Mr. President is worried about the continuous incessant strike at our tertiary institution, and therefore it features prominently as one of the focus areas under education. And there are a lot of measures. Since we came into office, we have been working behind the doors, and we have tried to create a very good understanding between the ministry and association-based and association and junior-based in education, so as to be that we are moving on the same level of understanding. We've tried to tell them what we can do, what the ministry can do that affect them, what requires interministerial collaborations, and what have to go to the president, and also what require council decision. And so far, so good, we are working in that understanding. We have achieved some milestone, even though it has been circularized, for example, the 35-25% circular on the increment of salary of the tertiary institution. And also the foreman that has been, all these things too have been a major issues of strike. And the foreman of withheld 8 months withheld salary that Mr. President graciously approved for payment. This we are working, and even just a few days ago, myself and my minister, we were at the Ministry of Finance. We have a discussion with the Minister of Finance on issue on the need to fast track the operationalization or implementation of the new circular, and also to look at the modalities of payment of the 4-month withheld salary that has been graciously approved for payment by Mr. President. And this, the finance has also given us a promising word. So we now see that with that dialogue that we have, we're understanding. And also, what ASU is also clamoring much is about infrastructural decay. You will agree with me that apart from the taxes that is going to TETFund, even in the budget that is about 700 billion that is meant for university, tertiary institution development. With all this, we are sure that definitely that the infrastructural decay in the tertiary institution may not only be, we cannot say will be completely solved. No, we are going to see a significant improvement. And then we also continue with that, our dialogue with ministry-based associations that are university, colleges of education, and many other institutions, so that we ensure that there is a level of playing ground that is acceptable to all to ensure continuity of academic calendar. This, it is our hope that with what we are doing and the understanding we have, we thank all the Ministry of Education-based associations and unions for having understanding with us, and we do agree that also what we are trying to do will have a way out in such a way that in the end, we all believe that we have cooperated together to a mutual benefit. For us, we will benefit when we have a strike-free calendar, and for us, they also, on other academics associations in the tertiary institution, will also be happier that they have delivered their constitutional mandate of improving knowledge, imparting knowledge, character, and skills to our students.
Fantastic. Honorable Minister, our lecturers are still being owed 4 months of unpaid salaries. Will the federal government pay these arrears?
I didn't hear you.
Did you get my question? All right. What I said was lecturers are still being owed 4 months of unpaid salaries. So I'm asking, will the federal government pay these arrears?
You see, I've told you that the president has graciously approved the payment of 4 months arrears of the withheld salary. And I told you just about last week, myself and my minister, we were in finance, all advocating for release and payment of such salary. You understand? So we are not just only saying, but we are walking the talk. And we are sure the work we are doing will be fruitful, and we'll all have a cause to say that we have worked together with tertiary institution, with the education-based institution in the ministry to achieve a goal.
All right. Honorable Minister, let's take a break. I've been speaking with Dr. Tanko Sunono, Minister of State for Education, and our focus tonight is the federal government student loan scheme. But take a break and we will be right back. Please stay with Politics Tonight. Welcome back, everyone. For the past 35 minutes, thereabouts, we've been focusing on the federal government's student loan scheme, and I've been speaking with the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Dr. Tanko Sununu. Honorable Minister, thank you for staying with us. Now, let's move on with this conversation. The Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, that's IPPIS, has been scrapped. Is there a new payment system in place, and how will it work differently from the old one?
You see, here we must also be thankful to Mr. President for the political will to do what is right. IPPIS payment in terms of the tertiary institution has been of great concern. It has a lot of disadvantages when you look at the education structure. One, the IPPIS does not carry some peculiarities of tertiary institution. Two, it has negated the powers of the vice chancellors and tertiary institution managers to hire and fire because they cannot stop salaries. If I don't control your emolument in terms of the work you do for me, there is naturally little I can do in terms of controlling you. And also, not only that, there are a lot of irregularities. And this has been a source of concern and a source of major strike that has led to a strike for over 8 months, with academics calendar being totally distorted. And the disadvantage of distorted economic calendar is the fact that you cannot, it cannot allow you to have international collaborations. Because by the time you are collaborating with another university, their students are in school, yours are on strike. So it doesn't give room for collaborations, and it has a lot of consequences. It took the will of Mr. President to say, look, all the tertiary institutions should be out of IPPIS payment. And that has received a lot of support, commendation, and joyfulness to all Nigerians, irrespective of whether they are academicians or not, because everybody knows education is of major concern, and the hope of having a continuity in academic calendar is now being restored. So what we are now doing is that the ministry is working along with NUC and the other regulatory bodies of the tertiary institution so that we can come up with the modality of payment, so that every the university will have the powers, institution will have the powers to pay, and then a very strong supervisory role will also be done by the ministry to avoid what led to decision to migrate to IPPIS not to repeat itself. And that is where we are now working in collaboration. Just even about some days ago, I think yesterday, there was even a meeting at the NUC to look at the modalities with all the vice chancellors around. And other tertiary institutions too are doing their own to see how we can come up with this thing. And this, in doing that, we all agree that there are, even in the system, there are accusations between the unions and even the management of our system. It do happen like that. So everybody will be allowed to come forward with a suggestion so that we can have a document that will be owned by everybody, that is acceptable, and that will also protect and guide against what are not acceptable, that may also derail the system, so that we can have a nearly perfect system that will help in ensuring that every staff has his or her emolument, together with all the peculiarities that is ascribed to them by their circular on their salaries. This is where we are now.
All right. But broadly speaking, what is the vision of the Tinubu-led government for tertiary education?
For
tertiary education.
What is the reason of the Tinubu-led government on?
What is the vision of the Tinubu-led government for tertiary education? You
see, the vision of the government of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in tertiary education is to see that we are providing the highest level of ethical standard in education. that will give an average graduate of Nigerian tertiary education the necessary skill, the character, the qualification that is attested to internationally and globally that will enhance the chances of average Nigerian student in a competitive environment, not only locally, but globally, that will partake in repositioning both economic, fiscal, and social development of the country. And in this regard, it's also part of the 8-point agenda. And what we did even in the ministry is to see how we are going to look at the tertiary level of education and to pay emphasis in some areas that we think that is what will provide the goal of average Nigerian. One of such measures is the issue of technology. Technology will be given emphasis. And as the year goes on, you see how this government will go into the area of technology in education, especially at tertiary level, that will reinvigorate the academic excellence of Nigeria. We also look at skills. And right now, TETFund is moving towards erecting workshops and laboratories within the country's tertiary institutions so as to improve our distance. And also a major goal of this government's educational endeavor is on research and development. You see, where we have come forward, research has been neglected. And I assure you that therein, there are a lot of funds that can be tapped, which will make a lot of difference in Nigerians' education if we focus more on research. And that is where we are going and where we are headed. And not only research that we are going to do and keep them in our archives for the purpose of promoting our academic career or excellence. No, we are going to also focus more on research that can be marketed so that our institutional growth in terms of industry will be backed by research. And those research are also meant to address our local needs that will promote Nigerians in academic, in society of nations. So that is the goal as far as tertiary institutions. And the way we are going to achieve that are numerous, which I've mentioned, through infrastructural revamping, through teacher and lecturer training, and also through the provision of necessary equipment and instruments, and also through leveraging on technology and many other fields. If we do that, definitely we are sure that the story will really change. And this is a promise that has been delivered to Nigerians by Mr. President. And we are also given a mandate in terms of ministerial deliverable, which we have also signed. And we are being marched and looked at forward timelinely. So we are not just allowed to just go like that. No, we are being marched. And we have also been given the mandate to always give Nigerian information on what we are doing, not only in Ministry of Education, in all the ministerial ministries under the federal government.
And still speaking of the President's education vision, I know the President some time ago begged us not to always resort to strike at any slight opportunity. Is there any form of agreement between ASU and the federal government to make strike a forgotten issue?
This is what I told you. What we have agreed with ASU is that we are going to continue to be consulting. And we are not going to be in a situation we will also differ from the situation whereby once we reach a term with the academic staff of any tertiary institution, we will not do anything until when they give us a notice that we are coming for you with an ultimatum in the next 3 years. No. Our focus for us in ending that strike, which is also the focus of the Mr. President, is to be proactive in doing the needful to prevent what needs to be done under duress. And that is what we are working. And it is part in terms of our proactiveness that we have designed to attain and also listen and then discuss openly with all the unions under the Ministry of Education so as to put the strike to an end. You understand? You see, for us to say that we are reaching that, we must create a trust. And trust can never be achieved when you are not open, when you are not discussing, when you are not empathic in what you are doing. So we are going to go to show empathy, and we are going to be listening, and we are listening. Most officially, my minister is also a senior advocate of Nigeria, so rule of law is not something new to him. And for me, I've grown up as a unionist, and I still engage in unionists. So for me, with them, we are friends, and we know each other even before I became a minister. So we continue to respect the wishes of the unions, and also to tell the unions where we think such cannot be achieved, and the reason that it will not be achieved, and then request and solicit for their understanding so as to move forward.
All right. So as someone who transitioned from the legislative arm of government to the executive arm of government, what is your personal goal as the Minister of State for Education?
Well, my personal goal is just what we are given with Mr. President. First of all, is respect of rule of law. As a former legislator, I know what it means by lawmaking, and I know the implication of law, and I know the implication of going against the law. So we must, in the discharge of our duties as responsible ministry, we must respect the law. Those laws include those laws of appropriation, the law of establishment of act, and many other laws that are within the ministry. And once we work within the ambit of the law and carry everybody along, the result is going to be a very effective governance that will produce the better education system that we have for this country. And that is what we are doing, and that's what we will continue to do.
All right, a few minutes to wrap up, but before then, let me take you up on this. Over 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria. But in the last few months of your appointment as the Honorable Minister of State for Education, what have you identified as the issues, the challenges, and how do we check this as a nation?
Well, you see, if you look at even still the 8-point agenda of Mr. President on focus on education, you find that out-of-school children is a major issue that featured prominently. And there are a lot of reasons why it should be worrisome. Once they can serve as a pool to miscreant the bandits and any other because they cannot go to school. Two, they are also source of low GDP because you have a pool of young people that cannot add value to the society. And three, they are also a situation whereby it's just like a time bomb. So that has focused prominently and is the major issue that we are looking at, a major thematic area that we are going to lose. And in fact, we have come up with annual plan that we are going to execute over 4 years. And our goal is to see that in every 1 year, that let's say in 2014, at least 25% of out-of-school children will be returned back to school. How are we going to do that? We are also going to, there are many ways. One of it is to increase in teacher enrollment. And very soon we are processing a waiver that we are going to take at least over 3,500 teachers in our federal institution. We are also going to look at the number of classes we have. Right now, we need over 200,000 classes. And I want to tell you that even as of today, at the federal level and in most states, you go around, you bear, our smart schools is adding a lot of number into classes we are going to have in the country. And of recent also, we also have federal colleges of technical colleges that we have been for basic. And I think right now we have over 21 schools in a distinct state of the state government that is also going to be added. So also to improve our classes, we also, even in the budget, we have the secondary school, National Secondary School Education Commission is going to do a lot in adding value to the number of school and classes we are going to have. We also have mentioned the issue of teacher recruitment. You must also agree with me that even in terms of sustainability of funding, the funding has also been increased. The federal government education is second to defense in terms of the capital project that it's going to have. So funding is also an issue that is, has improved significantly. And if you look at even the Universal Basic Education Commission, is receiving over 250 billion, which is hitherto less than that. We also have other interventions. Just in the on Monday, we are going to start to commission the GPE program that is adding almost 107.59 million US dollars to state education in terms of infrastructural development within the country that is going to be benefiting state in the country. And then not only in terms we have looked at issues of the system, we must also look at the issue of why students are taking, if we return them, how are we going to return them back, to return them in school, rather than returning them and allowing them to go back? We are going to incentivize education for the out of school. We have already Agile has started doing that for a girl child, with incentive of giving them certain scholarship that they enjoy from time to time, which will allow them to be retained and also arm them with skill. And also, at our basic level of education, we have come up with a different approach in such a way that not only the ones that are returned in school, even those that are going to be in basic school, we are going to arm them with skill. And this is why that anywhere you go, you find that we are constructing a school. 3 things are mandatory in that school. 1, a workshop, especially at the basic level. 2, a science laboratory. And 3, computer laboratory. And also under the IDEAS project, we are also looking on the way we are going to use contractors. What I mean by contractors here, if you are in a skill-related courses, how can we engage relevant local experienced engineers to train those students in skill? For example, if you are learning the art of tailoring, there are experienced tailors that can come and give you practical aspect of tailoring. So also electrical and electronics. These are all areas that we're doing. So we can now use those field activities to retain students in school. And major component of it also is the issue about Almajiri schools, which are also planning to integrate their basic education into Sangaya school so that they can also benefit in getting them the basic education. Because as it is now, the kind of literacy level we have is really unacceptable. While globally some countries are reaching almost 98–95% in terms of their literacy rate, right now in Nigeria it's about 63%. And then that 63% is not uniform. It varies from one region to another. For example, if you go to some state have gone far, state like Imo that have 96%, Lagos about 95%, and many other states. But if you come down, you go to issue in the northern part of the country, like Yobe State, it's so distant. In the north, it's still less than 30%. So this is not acceptable. And the only way we can do is to have a strong program that can be able to mobilize, retain, and also train, and then give them out to either proceed for their secondary level of education or arm them with a school with skill that they can learn. They have the background knowledge of reading and writing.
Right,
and most also, yeah.
Sadly, we're out of time. Dr. Tanko Sununu, Minister of State for Education, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Great conversation, and I sincerely appreciate you for joining us on the program tonight. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your opportunity, and let's continue to educate Nigerians. Education is the source of development world over. Thank you.
Right. Please have a great weekend. And thank you so much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke OO using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatiji. Good night and have a great weekend.